Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Souza, Chief Marketing Officer here at CareerArc, and I am so excited to welcome you to our first session of EMBARC Table Talks. Our goal is to make these sessions informative and interactive and, yes, fun, at least as fun as possible as we discuss the challenges that the pandemic and the Great Resignation have brought to talent acquisition. And we're really going to be leaning into what things you can do now to make a difference in your recruiting outcomes. As a reminder, this event qualifies for 2 SHRM professional development credits towards your recertification requirements. We will send an email after this event with the activity code for the attendees so that you can claim those credits. During the sessions, I do encourage you to submit questions via the Q&A window, which is just to the right side of the screen. We'll answer questions at the end of the presentation, but go ahead and send them in as we go, because we'll be looking through those and getting them ready to answer at the end. Also, you'll notice at the very bottom of your screen, there's a little emoji icon. So as the speakers are presenting, I encourage you to use your emojis effusively. It's always nice when you're speaking to get that little bit of visual feedback from the audience as well. So I'm sure that they would appreciate that. But with that, it's my great pleasure to present our first speaker, Bryan Adams. Bryan is the CEO and founder of Ph.Creative, which is recognized as one of the leading employer brand agencies in the world. They have clients such as Apple, American Airlines, GVC, Blizzard Entertainment, and more. Bryan is a best-selling author, podcaster, creative strategist, and specialist speaker. And if you've ever had the pleasure of hearing him speak before, you'll know that you're in for a real treat. And by the way, Bryan will also be leading one of the employer brand and reputation roundtables coming up at 11:30 Pacific time, 2:30 Eastern time. So that's after the next session. You'll be able to chat with him face-to-face in a little bit if you'd like to at the roundtable as well. And from there, Bryan, take it away.
All right, Linda, thanks so much. I absolutely love talking to the CareerArc audience. I find you super knowledgeable and engaged and all the rest of it. First time doing it remote, but really keen to sort of jump in and see where we go. And I want to encourage you to ask questions as we go, and I'll probably get to them all at the end. But sometimes I find that it's difficult to remember the question that you had on the tip of your tongue whilst we're talking. So please do that to make the questions valuable at the end. Right, I'm going to do the techie bit now and see if I can share my screen. And so if I do that and this, can everybody see my slides? Just my slides, and I think you'll still see my face. I can't see you right now, so I might jump out of this every now and again. Today, I want to talk about employer brand reputation specifically, and where it fits into employer brand as a whole, and where it fits into the world today as well, actually. And I'm going to start with a question. What do you want your employer brand reputation to be? And this can be as big as you like. What do you want it to be? What's in your mind? What's the first thing in your head? And if you already know and it's been defined or whatever, but ideally, magic one time. Put your answers in the comments, please. That would be super cool.
Okay.
So hopefully, and Linda, please let me know, because I can't see the comments. Let me know that people are starting to do it. That'd be
Yeah, I see they're starting to come in. One person says memorable. Nancy Jennings says best in class, great mission, vision, and goals to serve the region we live in.
Perfect.
William says dynamic. Melissa Childers says inspirational and aspirational.
Right.
Heather says compassionate and authentic. Jen says human, and there's more coming in as well.
Brilliant. Great, fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for your contribution. And we're going to come back to this in a little while. But first, should we talk about the Great Resignation? Can we just address what the hell is going on and has been going on over the last 12 months or so? For the purpose of this talk, I want us to sort of reframe something. The Great Resignation is actually the great epiphany. Because if you think about it, if we call it the Great Resignation, we're thinking in the perspective of an organization and what is happening to our organization. And whenever I talk about employer brand, whenever I do employer brand work and think about the strategy and how to approach a challenge, I always try and put myself in the shoes of the candidate or the employee, because essentially they're the most important stakeholder. And actually what's happened is there's been a great epiphany. People are waking up all over the world and saying, what? I don't have to get in a car or ride a train for an hour there and back every day to sit in an arbitrary four walls to do my job. Like, oh my God, I have had an epiphany. I'm not going to do that anymore. People are saying, like, I don't want to be a bus driver anymore. I want to be a painter. And you know what? There's nothing you can do about it. People are waking up and saying, I think I'm worth more and I want to spend more time with my kids. It's an epiphany that you can't do anything about. And the fact is, great people are leaving great companies. And if we try and control it, we'll lose our mind and we'll lose the game. So I want us to reframe it. And for everybody in the audience, TA, employer brand, recruiters, all of us in our HR and people community, I also think that this is now the Great Awakening. From my clients and my client partners and my communities, what we're seeing is organizations suddenly waking up to the fact that people are the most important thing in our organization. Imagine that. But it's also the time of employer brand. It's the time to get smart about employer brand strategy and what it can do as a competitive advantage to organizations, large or small. So this is our time to see employer brand rise right to the top of priorities in organizations far and wide. And I'm hoping that with a slight different mindset and a shift in how we approach employer brand, we can capitalize on this is the time to get investment in employer brand, to recognize, acknowledge, and appreciate our people and go about things slightly differently. But in a much better way that will be much more conducive to what we want to achieve. But first, so, in terms of the Great Resignation, I drew this, I sketched this out the other day, and I just feel like it's something I want to share with you to hopefully make a point. In terms of our working day, it can be stressful, it can be high stress, it can be low stress. But if we map the employee experience of the amount of stress or challenge over time, essentially, that's what our career looks like. So our employee experience, if we map that over, challenge over time, but that's a straight line. It's not typically like that, is it? It's a bit wiggly. So if we look at it from that perspective, it's usually we have good days and we have bad days. Our EVP, our employee value proposition, if we think about that as the expectation margin, so if we've got our employee value proposition right, we've accurately set the expectations of our people, and including a margin of good days, bad days, high stress, low stress, and everyone has their good days and bad days. It's fine if it's within the expectations. Okay. Now, from an employer brand strategy perspective, if the employee experience starts to stray outside of the expectation margin, we're now in the realm of tolerance. So it's like, this is not what I was expecting. This is not what I want to put up with long term, but I will tolerate it for a short period of time. Okay, and I call this the happiness bracket. Okay, the happiness bracket of employer brands. And in times of uncertainty, volatility, change, transition, your reputation will determine the staying power, the loyalty, the willingness to support the business. Okay, it's the reputation that people will go, do you know what? Like, look, this is a great organization. I just need to knuckle down or get behind somebody, or we need to pull together, or whatever. Without the reputation reminding of people why they're there, if the employee experience is outside the realm of experience for too long, then people are going to leave, you know. And we're seeing that across the world with the great resignation. Employee experience has changed. Organizations aren't changing with expectation. And the reputation of that organization determines whether people stick around for a short period of time, for a long period of time, or not at all. So today I want you to think about this. Reputation influences tolerance. Your EVP controls expectations. So we can't control our reputation. We can only influence it. But it can be heavily influenced and strategically built. It only matters what people think and feel, not what you say and do. So the word influence is critical here. And we have to be open-minded enough to accept that when people have a great epiphany, there's not a damn thing you can do about it, but we can prepare for it. And incidentally, I'm focusing on reputation today, but I do want to stress, if your employee experience is constantly outside the expectation margin, it's time to refresh your EVP. That's a great indication of if you're not meeting expectations. Some EVPs don't meet expectations at all. They're too much like a magnet to attract rather than a smart filter for people to make smart decisions. But that's the best indicator. So from a research perspective, is our expectations being met? And the litmus test for your employer brand's reputation, plus the proposition you've laid out, your give and get, and the experience that you create should be an easy decision for candidates or employees or associates. That's an easy thing for you to discover. If it's diluted and it isn't putting people to an easy decision to make, then it's not well defined enough. It's not strategic enough. It's not in line with the business, and it's not serving you well. Okay, so what's the purpose of an employer brand? What's the purpose of an employer brand? For me, it's two things. It's to win an unfair share of talent. So it's about motivation to join. But it's also to keep high caliber talent, even when the wheels fall off. So it's a motivation to stay. Or is it? How much can we control people to stay? Remember, it's about influence, not control. What if talent flow was out of our control? What would we do with that? So earlier I asked you, what do you want your employer brand reputation to be? Many of you said a lot of really interesting things top of mind, but many of you said things like world's best employer, most attractive employer. And this is the conventional thinking, like, magic one time, this is what we want to be known as. And I totally understand that. But what I want to bring to you today is the idea of specificity and strategic direction to really craft a reputation that's specific to your organization, that will serve the business well and serve your candidates and employees at the same time. And how do we do that? It starts by not resigning to a vanilla, vague, intangible reputation. Okay. Now, imagine, and we all know that by and large, the team with the most talented people wins. Okay. But imagine if you worked for a company that lost its best talent every 2 to 4 years, and there's not a damn thing you could do about it. Okay. Scale of 1 to 10 in the comments. How much of a nightmare would that be for you if that was a continual thing? Okay, let's just see some numbers pop up in the comments. And imagine still if you knew that 1 or 2 companies were constantly taking the talent as they left. So there's 1 or 2 companies out there that are constantly taking your best talent, and the talent's leaving every 2 to 4 years. Imagine they typically left to join 1 or 2 specific companies, but still there's nothing you could do about it. How much of a nightmare would that be? Finally, if you spoke to the leaders in your organization and they said, yeah, we know, don't worry about it. In fact, imagine they were proud of it, they celebrated it, and even encouraged it. Would you lose your mind? Or would you embrace that? Okay, so that company does exist. There's many like them, but I was talking about McKinsey. Now, it's tough to get a job at McKinsey, but it's an ultimate springboard for a person's career. For the few people who secure a position there, it's the rocket fuel many use to launch an entire career that serves them well. And Google and Amazon are the top destinations for talent who leave McKinsey after a few years. So McKinsey is also a career catalyst for the lucrative industries, including banking and venture capital. So why do they do it? Why do they allow this? Well, it's 25 times tougher to land a job at Google than it is to get accepted into Harvard. So let that sink in for a second. Okay. Now, when you get a job at Google, they pay 3 times the average amount. They surround you by really smart people. They've got learning and development, which is best in class. And after working in Google, you're employable pretty much anywhere on the planet. Okay. And McKinsey is known as a feeder for that. So they're building a reputation as a career catalyst. How do they do it? They attract the best young talent and foster an environment to help and learn them grow quickly. They invest heavily in their career websites, including personalized imagery and video, and all the rest of it. It could be done better, but actually it's very good. They also have the top tier recruiters. Okay, 1.4% of their workforce, that's 3% higher than the nearest competitor, are recruiters, top caliber recruiters. And the high caliber recruiters all have usually worked for big tech giants, and they've got very specific experience, and many of them have graduated from the top 30 universities. So McKinsey has an up and out high performance culture. Their rising stars get promoted quickly, but high caliber talent can't all progress to a senior position. And that means they're encouraged to leave nicely. You know, make space for more people to progress. Being moved on at McKinsey isn't seen as a bad thing. And finally, McKinsey highlight ex-employees on their career website, and they invest in a separate alumni website that celebrates ex-talent. So this alumni website accounts for 11% of their overall web traffic. That's showing us just how much they invest in their alumni experience. You know, and that's compared to 1% of traffic for the nearest competitors. So overinvest in recruiters, support and promote the best talent, up and out culture, make space for people at the top. So think about the opportunities there, and think about the Great Resignation from a McKinsey perspective. Actually, this creates a lot of space to make headway with diversity, for other initiatives, from promoting internally, and it further solidifies a reputation as a career catalyst. So short stints are the norm at McKinsey, and they become a constant steady flow of evangelists for the firm after they've left. And this is what cements their reputation as a career catalyst. Now, if you've read Give and Get Employer Branding, and if you haven't, you should go to Amazon and buy it immediately. But you will have read that we talk about impact, purpose, and belonging. They're the 3 foundational things that people are looking for in their career. So therefore, they're 3 integral ingredients in an employer brand. Now, from a reputational perspective, here's the cool bit. If we look at where purpose, impact, and belonging intersect, so that's like the subconscious human requirement somewhere on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We can now look at the intersection, the conscious desire and motivator and driver from a career perspective for people. And there's 3 buckets. Okay, and I've just talked about career catalysts, and McKinsey is a fantastic example of that. And this is where we need to spell out the give and get of career catalysts being proof of career advancement, access to development, challenging, tough work, building external reputation, having visible diversity. From a career catalyst perspective, diverse teams are known to perform better, and compensation. But there's 2 others. Now, culture is synonymous with employer brand and has been for many years. And you look at companies like, I don't know, Salesforce with Ohana and HubSpot, for example, and like there's many organizations that trade on the idea of inclusion and belonging, and have a great culture that you want to be part of. Okay, and that's still a main driver. You know, flexibility and agility, management support, inclusion, financial security, the environment people are in, so on and so forth. Even data transparency all plays a role in culture, building trust, and so on and so forth. But this year, well, 2022 is the first year that millennials officially rule the world. Scary? I don't know. Maybe that's for another day. I missed out on being a millennial by 1 year. I'm not bitter. But actually, for the first time, we're seeing real change, global change being driven by people caring about the environment, caring about other communities and people who don't look like them, and standing up for people who need help and support from a business perspective. Citizenship is rising as a main driver for people to choose to make career decisions. And the give and get of citizenship includes having a political voice as an organization. Wow, for the first time, we're actually seeing organizations dare to have a political voice. Diversity from a citizenship perspective, the integrity of a leader, responsible environmental policy, social responsibility, community outreach, supply chain integrity, even philanthropy, easy for me to say. So all of these things are playing a major role. Now, I gave an example of Career Catalyst, but if your organization isn't high performance culture and you can't, that's not a natural strength, then perhaps you need to trade on your culture. Perhaps you need to trade on your citizenship. And then you look at the things that we've talked about in each one of those to act as proof points and campfires to tell stories around, to forge a reputation for something specific, to stand you out against your competition, and to be more relevant to your talent audience. So I'll further the example I used as Career Catalyst. So some things here to build an employer brand reputation from a Career Catalyst perspective. Scarcity, like it's got to be tough to get a job. Like you need to build that reputation and tell that story. Look, not everybody will get a job here. The bar is high. There needs to be toughness in the workforce. It needs to be tough. There needs to be harsh realities and adversities and real challenge that people can find achievement to overcome. You've got to pay great. You've got to support your people. You've got to be clear with progression. There has to be flexibility, working from home or working different hours, so on and so forth. And diversity, integrity, stability, other key ingredients from a Career Catalyst perspective. And again, from a McKinsey story, remember, over and investing in great recruiters, support and promote your best talent, have an up and out culture, move people on and make space at the top. And tell that story. If short stints are okay, consider them a steady flow of evangelists for the firm. Imagine 50 people leave your company every month, but they all have got great stories to tell about their time with your organization and how it was essential as a springboard to move their career forward. If you invest in that strategically, it's going to reinforce the reputation you're trying to create. So it can't all be sunshines and rainbows, but if you are going to use a rainbow in your employer brand, let it be the rainbow of reputation, expectation, experience. And McKinsey, they've got a very clear reputation as a career catalyst. The expectation, the give and get that they set is, hey, it's not easy here. It's not even easy to get in the door. But if you do, and you give us your best 2 years, we'll support you, we will nurture you, we will accelerate you. And when you leave, there's a good chance you'll go and work for Google on $1 gazillion a year. Okay, very straightforward proposition. Some people won't like that, but some people are really, really motivated by that. And then the experience perspective. You might only have a limited budget from where to invest in your talent experience, but with a strategic approach, aligning reputation, expectation, and experience. Now you don't need to be world-class and best in breed across all of the talent experience. McKinsey aren't known for a great candidate experience. They don't promote employee experience specifically, but they do over-index on their alumni experience. And that's what solidifies and reinforces a great reputation as an employer. So your reputation, that's your employer brand strategy in the essence. This is what needs to align with the direction of the business. This has got to be valuable to the business. The CEO down needs to understand and buy into the fact that we need a very specific reputation to get the people we need to move the business forward. There's your buy-in, there's your alignment, there's your budget for next year, etc. Your employer brand proposition, your EVP, the give and get of the employee experience, that needs to be a fair and balanced proposition. So people are, they know what to expect. They can live within the expectations of the employee experience and be comfortable giving and getting. And then the employer brand execution, that's the experience piece. That's where we bring it to life. So, like I said, from a career catalyst perspective, McKinsey, whether they know it or not, they've got all of their ducks in a row, and they've got a very tight ship in terms of reputation, expectation, and experience. As I'm saying that, what questions pop up in your mind in terms of, where are you doubling down in your talent experience? How doesn't it line up? How is your reputation positioned now, and how aligned is it with your organization? What questions have you got for me from that perspective? I'd love to know. Some of you might be thinking, what talent does the business need? And here's how I think about this. Brilliance and resilience, okay? It's quite easy to understand what brilliance you're looking for. They're the competencies and the capabilities to be a star inside of your organization, and that usually they're easy to find out. But what resilience what brand of resilience do your people need? What do they need to cope with from a work-life balance perspective, from a management style perspective, from an environmental perspective, from an engagement and social perspective? What aspects of resilience do you need? Now, if you know the answers from a brilliance and resilience perspective, then you're 50% of the way there of choosing a strategy that's going to serve you well. Now, these are probably the least sexy slides I've ever produced in my entire life, but I wanted to make it super clear and set something out that really helps you go away from this talk, think differently about reputation as an employer, and then start to map out what your reputation as an employee needs to be. So here's the question we need to ask. What reputation do we need to drive our business forward? Okay, because if we answer that, we are now coming up with solutions to drive the business forward. Your C-suite are going to welcome you in with open arms. And the subset of that is what best motivates talent we need. What are they looking for? What do they need to hear? What reassurance do they need? What experience do we need to create? What is the best motivator and driver for the specific brand of talent that we want to move the business forward? What best aligns to our existing strengths? Because if the answer to the first question is a whole raft of new stuff, then we're in a bit of trouble, But typically, when we then ask, okay, so what of those things do we already do really well? And as they overlap, we know where to start and where to concentrate and focus and build out from, okay? And then finally, and this is really important, what best provides differentiation from competitors, right? And if we go through this, and we're now not putting up with world's best employer or most attractive organization, we're being specific. There's an opportunity to stand out against your competitors here. Most employer brands you could take from one company and put it straight underneath the nearest competitor, and it would make sense because it's generic and it's vague, it's aspirational, or vague. From a differentiation perspective, this is where we, if you can imagine a treasure map, what makes us different? That's the X marks the spot, because if we dig there, that's where we're going to find real, genuine stories of passion and pride that bring value and context to the stories that we're telling and our employer brand as a whole. Okay, so they're the questions I want you to ask and answer. And then it's super easy. Once you've got answers to that question, are we a career catalyst? Is this the bucket we're in? Is this where we're going to live? Is this what we're going to dial up and use as our main driver? Does citizenship stand out? Are we like Patagonia and Ben and Jerry's and Microsoft, where citizenship is part of our culture? It's something that already attracts great talent and motivates them to do great work. Or is our culture something special that people talk about? So the reason people join isn't the reason people stay. People join for a whole host of things, but they stay because of how we make people feel. Which is your superpower that exists in your organization? It's not uncommon to have one main driver supported by a second, but I would encourage you to bring clarity around which one will serve us best, which one feels like it's the most natural fit. And this is a very simple, I told you these weren't sexy slides. I'm not proud of the design, but this is an employer brand reputation strategy matrix, bit of a mouthful. But if you do this exercise, what motivates talent, what aligns with the business, what differentiates us from a competition, and then career catalyst, citizenship, culture, score yourself as it stands today. And that'll give you a good indication of where to position yourself and where you can start in terms of natural strengths, and where you need to perhaps work on and dial up and pull out of your people or put into your organization to make things better. So once you've figured all of that out, and I like to end from a perspective of simplicity, okay? Once you've figured all of that out and you have a very clear idea of the reputation you need as an employer, the expectations you can set, and the experiences that you provide, launching, activating, managing, and breathing life into your employer brand consistently consists of stories of why people are there, or stories of why people were there, stories of what it takes to thrive there, and stories of how it feels to be there. And if you use that as a very simple story matrix and go looking for those stories, then if it's aligned with a very clear direction of travel, those employee stories, those alumni stories, the candidate stories will serve you well and build a reputation that gets stronger and more differentiated and more relevant to your talent audience. All right, that's it. Hopefully, I've just sparked a couple of ideas for you to take into your organization, think differently, and so forth. Hopefully, there's been some questions, and we've got time for those questions. Shameless plug for the book again. And also, I just want to quickly mention, we're running a 2-week employer brand strategy course. We call it a sprint. It's very fast paced. It's only over 2 weeks, 80% pre-recorded video and live sessions with me and my team to walk you through in-depth models of how to set your organization up for success and how to accelerate your own career from a reputation, expectation, experience perspective. So I'll leave you with that. So do we have questions? Do we have time for them? Bring it on. Let's see where we take the last few minutes of the presentation. Linda, over to you.
We do have some questions. Let me go through these, and please,
Wonderful.
as we go, feel free to submit more, and we'll just take as many questions as we can in this next 10 minutes.
All right. So with the citizenship aspect of the 3 Cs, how do you balance the risk of publicizing potentially controversial views? Lots of things are controversial nowadays. True. Cancel culture. Sometimes even slight nuances, miswordings. Okay. So I totally understand this, and there's an element of common sense and strategic thinking here. And from a political voice perspective, or anything controversial, it's essential that it's strategic and deliberate. It's not you're not shooting from the hip, and it's not just what someone feels liberated to say. Because when you put something out there, the organization has to stand by it, and you have to all align around it. And there was a really good, I think it was Coinbase, the CEO said something super controversial a few months ago, and it wasn't thought through at all. I think it was something highly politicized, like if you weren't going to vote for Trump, he didn't want you to work in a company, or something around politics. And actually, that looked like a play to just get headlines, and it was very disruptive to their culture, and it alienated people internally, such that people left. But when you look at the likes of Patagonia, everything is coherent and consistent right the way throughout their organization, and they're brave enough to stand up and say, hey, we might lose business for saying this, but this is what we believe in. And if there is a conviction and there is ethics and integrity behind your message, and you're comfortable and confident that you're not alienating people internally, then it can be a huge opportunity to reinforce a very specific reputation. So it's not something I take lightly, and it does have to be thought through, but you can't please all the people all the time. And actually, if you step into this with an element of bravery and conviction, this can really help shape and foster a very strong employee experience and an employer brand reputation. So I hope that helps.
Okay. I think this one's probably top of mind for a lot of people right now.
Okay. Ooh. This is very controversial. Any thoughts on how companies can combine the mandating of vaccines with employer branding? Yes, absolutely. So you can have respect for an organization, whichever side of the fence they fall, if they have a coherent story and a rationale that stacks up with who they are and where they're moving towards. And I think if there's empathy and compassion, and it's a people first decision which is justified, you don't have to agree with it as long as you can respect and understand it. And I think it's more important to bring clarity and confidence in a situation such as that than to be ambiguous and vague and seemingly detached from your people. And sometimes this takes a bit of bravery and understanding that you're not going to please all the people all the time, but it needs to be considered, strategic, and people first from an empathy and compassion perspective. I can't give you any more specificity around it than that. It's a tough one.
Okay. There's one more from Jacqueline.
Oh, what a great question. How do you recommend to address and brand the harsh realities of working for your company? The goal being to highlight the advantages along with the realities that aren't as sexy. Okay, so this isn't just about talking about the crappy bits of your employee experience because you want to be a bit more transparent. And I'm going to use Amazon as an example here. I've never worked with or for Amazon. Okay, so this is speculative, outside looking in, and stuff that I've read. Okay, disclaimer. But I understand there's quite a harsh working environment at Amazon. And I've read some scary stories about that. However, you show me any organization in any harsh environment, and I will show you somebody who loves that environment and thrives within it. And actually, what I can tell you is some people in Amazon take a lot of pride from the fact that they can cope and thrive in that organization. Okay, so there's going to be harsh realities and adversities of your employee experience that, positioned right, can actually bring more value to the accomplishment, the appreciation and acknowledgement and achievement that is that you can see inside of an organization. So it's not more about just being transparent and saying, look, we want to tell you, you're going to find this is rubbish inside our organization. It's the justification and the context. And, there's a great book by Ryan Holiday that says the obstacle is the way. And it's about stoicism. I think I've said that right. And actually, the message is the big challenge, the big rock, that's the whole deal. That's what people want to know. So, long way of saying a very simple solution. Be upfront with the harsh realities by design inside your organization. Justify them and tell the stories of how people have thrived, not despite them, but because of them. You will find people that actually love the environment that you're in, and you can embrace these harsh realities to be a differentiator and to be something that compels a small small proportion of your talent audience to want to know more and join. And those are the ones who will thrive, and those are the ones who will stay, and they'll be loyal, and they'll be evangelists even when they leave. Great question.
Okay.
Well, I agree. I agree. Employer brand is super important. Sometimes it's hard to get leadership to see the value. Spot on. I don't have concrete ROI that I can tie back to the employer brand related projects. Thanks for asking this. Tips for a business case. The existing priorities on all of your senior leadership in your organization will have a derivative people-based challenge. Okay, start there. If you can tap in and demonstrate how you can impact and add value to existing priorities inside the organization, then that's the start of your business case. There's a lot of published documentation out there now tracking employer brand metrics to general performance of an organization. There's a lot of studies that have been done that demonstrate the value of reputation and just, you know, the difference from brand familiarity can make to applications, you know, talent acquisition campaigns and applications from that perspective. There's so much research out there. But actually, what we've talked about today, leadership will value your employer brand if you can tell them a very simple story of how we need to craft a reputation as an employer to attract the talent you need to achieve the jobs to be done that are going to take the business forward. And it's that simple. Keep it simple from that perspective. It's about storytelling and tangible examples of exactly how that's happened in your organization. If you could turn the dials up on that, then you'll get somewhere. And by now, you will have competitors in the talent space that are already all over this, that are doubling down on employer brand and eating your lunch, that they're hiring the talent that you want to hire. You know, so I can probably give you a lot more specific examples, some stats and some specifics. If you get in touch, I'd be happy to chat to you about this. I love this subject.
Cool. All right. I think we have time for one more before our next session. So just post that one.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Oh my God, I think there's so many organizations where the head fell off during COVID. I think the worst has been how people have dealt with letting people go. You know, I think, was it Baird, the scooter company, let so many people go via text message or email. So I'm just being joined by two dogs at the moment. I thought that was horrifically handled. And then you see Airbnb, a moment of weakness, having to let people go, but they did so with such compassion and grace and dignity that their brand sentiment went up, and they benefited from a consumer response of people feeling an emotional attachment to Airbnb such that their share price actually went up. And now things are getting back on their feet. Airbnb are flying. So there's been a number of horror stories during COVID, but I think they all have a derivative of how people treated their teams with empathy and compassion or not. And it actually impacted consumer behavior, not just reputation as an employer.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Bryan. We always enjoy having you here. And I know I personally get a ton out of your presentation. So I'm always really excited about listening to you speak, and I could listen to you speak for another hour. But just as a reminder to everybody here, in the session, we will have roundtables in about another 45 minutes, and Bryan will be leading one of those roundtable sessions on employer brand and reputation specifically. So please stick around and jump into that roundtable. There's a limited, excuse me, number of seats for each. So, you know, make sure you get your seat quick if you want to get in there and have more face-to-face time with Bryan. We're going to go ahead and end this session. There will be a minute or two in between sessions. Our next one is with Inspire Brands. Kristen Ferguson and Brian Hocus will be speaking about candidate flow specifically, and just different recruitment marketing ideas, what they've been doing that they found work, and some suggestions for others as well. So I will see you again in another couple minutes, and I hope you're enjoying so far. Feel free to pop into the social lounge or even speed networking in between, and you'll see the countdown once the next session begins. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.